Hi everyone, my name is Tia. I have been fighting for my life against germs, against grad school applications. I am a different human being than the last time you saw me, truly. I have had trials and tribulations. I'm here to talk about my favorite 15 books of the year. I've read 107, which is really good. I mean, if you read 2, that's also really good. If you read 200, that is so good. By good, I mean I read so many fantastic books. I met so many fantastic people through books, through reading, through this YouTube channel. And I'm just so thankful for the year that I had. And I have a top 15. These are in no particular order. Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. Oh my god, this book will suck you in. I could not physically put this down. I was incapable. It was glued to my body. Just the tension that you feel is palpable. When you read it, you will get addicted to the story, addicted to the characters, to the writing style. I have so many like exclamation points, question marks, oh my gods, as that I annotated. I bought this on eBay and the person who had it before me also annotated the book, and I actually loved this reading experience because I got to annotate the book with a stranger. It was it was such a fun experience. I've never gotten to do that. I really do hope that I find more used books that are annotated. If I see a book in a used bookstore that is annotated, I go out of my way to see if I'll like the book, to see if I want to buy it, because truly, if you find annotations in an old book, oh, it's so fun. Oh, it's like talking to a friend, talking to a stranger about your reading experience. Being able to read. Oh, Figgy's here. Say hi. I'm sure YouTube also missed you. He's trying to drink my coffee that's currently sitting on the floor. Yep, there he goes. I read this so quickly. Did you see that? I have him on, I got you on tape. Actually unprovoked. This was so good. It seems kind of crazy pulling this right after Giovanni's Room, but Check-and-Mate by Ali Hazelwood is my favorite Hazelwood. She's the author I read the most of this year. I think I read 7 of her books. This is against 2 chess rivals. I think it is so much fun because these 2 characters are so well matched intellectually. The tension is just so spot on. I just have such positive memories of my reading experience. This is the Hazelwood that you're gonna pick up if you haven't read Hazelwood before. I also really enjoyed Bride. I feel like that's, people either love that one or hate that one. Let's do some obvious ones. If you've watched, what is it, my half-year check-in, of course this made the list. Of course Ashley Poston's 7-Year Slip made the list. This was my first 5-star of the year. I think I read it sometime in March. My friend right now is actually reading it off of me and my other friend's recommendation, which I made that friend read it. She sobbed. My friend right now reading it texted me at 4 in the morning. She was sobbing. I've read all of Ashley Poston's work so far. This is like accolades above the others. Somehow, somewhere, I don't know what she put in it. She said in her author's note that like this was a very personal book to her. And I feel like you could just tell love poured into the pages, seeped into the ink on the page. Who did the audiobook for this? Brittany Presley. Top 3, top 4 audiobook narrators for me. She did such a fantastic job. She did such a good job that I borrowed it from my library, was reading on an audiobook. There was a moment I was walking in the park, minding my business, reading my audiobook. A line like stopped me in my tracks. I gasped out loud. I went to Target and I bought it because I needed to annotate it. Such a fun reading experience, such a wonderful story, so beautifully written. I loved every single part of this book, not only for the romance too. There's like familial aspects, and I think this was like huge in 2023. I feel like everyone and their mom wouldn't stop talking about it, but I understand. I actually think this is one of the books that like the hype is so worth it, but also if you are dealing with like familial grief, maybe give yourself some grace, and this might not be the book for you right now. I feel like it was heavy, but it was done with so much care. I will always love this book. This will easily fall in like my top romances of all time. Speaking of top romances of all time, How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwan. One, I love the annotation job that I did. Like, stellar color match, if I do say so myself. I read this earlier this year, question mark. Oh, this actually did win the Goodreads debut award, which I thought was it was so nice seeing her win. I'm so happy for her. I think what really stood out to me, and I feel like this is another book that's like people love it or they absolutely hated it and they didn't understand it, which I get. The premise is kind of bonkers, but you get into the writing, there is so much Asian American nuance. Figaro just busted my door open by like donkey kicking it. So much Asian American nuance in our female main character, Helen. I related so much to how she thought and how she walked through the world. I don't think I've connected with a character like that in such a long time, which is why this book is so beautiful. Just like there were so many moments that I was glued to these pages. I loved their story. I love Helen. And Grant is written like such an interesting male main character. You know that there are male main characters who like they're on the page to be the book boyfriend. Grant is not just the boyfriend. I feel like Grant is written as a character himself, which maybe people don't like him, but you can't say it's because he's a bland, boring guy. It's because he's got his own personality. He's got flaws, definitely, and he's got flaws that sometimes I can relate to, like alarmingly so. This is also falling into my top romances. I will remember this book for such a long time. I will always have such a special place in my heart for this book. Marie Howe's What the Living Do. Oh, he's on my bed. Packs a punch. So much about grief and love and life and loss. I read this in the summer and I still think about it. This contains not one of my favorite poems, but one of my favorite poems ever, called The Landing by Marie Howe, is not in this collection. I think it's in Magdalene, but I didn't like Magdalene, the collection, as much. I like just The Landing, the poem. But What the Living Do was such a concise look at what the broader meaning of life is, which is so interesting. Like, how can you do that in such a small little book? It made me feel so out of body in a good way. I really enjoyed it. You will do a lot of introspection. Marie Howe's writing is lovely, and I will always have very fond memories of this book. My mom got it for me for my birthday this year, and it was only $5, so that was great. Oh my god, wait, we need to talk about December. My December has been a whirlwind. I submit 8 grad school applications. I still have 1 more to submit, but well, my girlfriend got sick and then I got sick, so I spent like a week in this bed, not moving at all. Like, it's actually concerning. I feel like my legs were atrophying by how much I just wasn't really doing anything, but it was exhausting. But because I was sick, I read 15 books in December, which is so crazy because like in the first 2 weeks, I feel like I didn't really read that much because I was busy with grad school applications, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 I was finishing like a book every few days. It was ridiculous. My favorite by far in December was A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. I then went to read Stacey's other 2 books, by far the best one. The other 2, one I didn't even like. The other one was like just okay, but it was kind of boring and a little slow. This one, I think this is her debut too. I feel like she hit the mark perfectly. Every single chapter, you're just like, what is going on? I went into this absolutely blind. I know nothing about it. I feel like the cover doesn't really give anything away either. I was in a trance reading this. I physically read it and I could not put it down. It was so fun. I read half of it like audiobook too, so that one is pretty good. Just go into this with no expectations. Don't try and use your brain, because then I feel like you might be able to figure out, and that's not fun. But like, if you're not using your brain, because I was sick, what a fun time. What a crazy good time. This is exactly the feeling that I chase when I read mysteries and thrillers. I feel like in December I read quite a few, and none of them hit as hard as this. Oh, do I even need to say anything? I feel like this book has been out for quite some time, and the series, I think, so A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn is the first one out of like 9. She pumps them out every year. Love that for me specifically, because then I have like 8+ to look forward to. But this is surprising for me because I don't usually like historical romances. But this is not really a historical romance. This is a historical mystery with a side plot of like slow burn romance. It checks literally all the boxes you could possibly think of when I say those words. It's so much fun. The banter is hilarious. Our female main character is so intelligent and clever. This is a fun book. It's so fun. I've heard really good things about this series. I feel like it's been around for a really long time, and I'm so glad I got started. Oh my gosh. Little Rot by Akwaeke Emeze was a trip. It was an absolute bonkers trip. I don't have that much annotated because I was just flip. Could not stop reading it. I read it at the pool, which is why it's like all messed up here, which honestly I kind of love that my copy is messed up, because that's just how you know that I absolutely was eating this up. And trust me when I say this book, like, you cannot even guess what the heck is happening. what a fever dream in the best way possible. I don't want to tell you anything. I do want to tell you to look at trigger warnings. They're kind of crazy. Like, this book is crazy. All the characters are very distinct. I wouldn't necessarily say I liked any of them, but I did. I liked all of them. They were all very complex and interesting, and they all had their own certain character motivations. What an intriguing, well thought out novel. I really, really enjoyed this book. Absolutely devoured it. Kennedy Ryan's This Could Be Us, second of her Skyland series. I loved the first one too. I just didn't want to pick like both of them from this list. I think I like this one more, but she just does like true, genuine adult romance so well. She writes mature characters. She writes well fleshed out romances that are not just two people in a vacuum. They involve family, they involve kids sometimes, very real life dynamics that you can't just escape from, but she does it in a way that's done with a lot of love, and her writing is so good. I love these books. They're so good. Kennedy Ryan is up there in her own tier in terms of romance. Can you tell that I'm still sick? Oh, and then two books actually I don't have physical copies of. White Oleander by Janet Finch, I read for my 1999 vlog. I haven't done one of those vlogs since, actually. White Oleander was the culmination of everything heartbreaking you could put in a book done really well. It was so heavy, it was so dark, but I spent so much time loving the characters, especially our main character, that like you can't help but root for human beings and how perseverance and integrity are like at the deep core of human beings. It was so good, and it was so sad. And I would totally read it again. And then a book that I've heard a lot about this year, I feel like lots of people are putting this book on their favorites list this year. Very well deserved. The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. I actually read this book because a very sweet commenter, I mentioned that one of my favorite audiobook narrators is Kit Griffiths. She narrated Blue Sisters by Coco Malors, which I haven't talked about. I was like raving about that audiobook, and someone said, oh, like Kit Griffiths also narrated The Invocations, which I gave a 5 stars. So I was like, ooh, okay. Immediately borrowed it from the library. Oh my god, that book was phenomenal, enrapturing. Crystal Sutherland grabbed my skull with claws, like magical claws. Didn't let go. There are so many different elements involved: magic and gore, feminism and women empowerment, and queer elements, and also like coming of age, because I think it's a young adult. Literally everything you could be looking for in a book that like is whimsical and very strong-willed. The Invocations. Actually so good. And because I love that book, I read her debut, House of Hollows, which I also really liked. Unfortunately, it was not narrated by Kit Griffiths, but still so good nonetheless. I like The Invocations more, which is what I've heard from a lot of people who've read both, but still, Crystal Sutherland is now an auto-read author for me. I'm so glad that I picked up The Invocations. Thank you to that commenter, really, for recommending it. Fantastic. It was so good. And then I've got a few more on my list. We are not surprised to see Mr. Brian Washington on my favorites. He's one of my favorite authors of all time. I feel like I mention him way too much on my channel. He only has 3 books out, but this was the only book that I hadn't read from him. And I just loved how Lot punched me in the heart, spit me back out. And I love him for it. I really enjoyed these stories as a collection. I thought they melded really well. There are some that punch you harder than others, but they blended beautifully into just like a little collection about what love and family can look like. Sometimes it's twisted, sometimes it's not, and he always does such a good job implementing so much culture and heart into his books. I love so much about this book, and I love so much about this man's writing. Oh my god. And he's coming out with something next year in the fall, probably one of my most anticipated reads of the year. So excited for it. And then one book that like I don't think I'm gonna see in other people's like favorites because it's so random. It's called Raw Dog: The Naked Truth About Hot Dogs by Jamie Loftus. This is a nonfiction, my only nonfiction on this list. I actually picked this up on a totally random whim. My book club and I were like on FaceTime, and one of my friends was talking about one of the books that she was reading, and I was browsing that book. And you know how Goodreads does like, oh, like books similar to this. I saw this title. I immediately borrowed it from the from the library without really getting any context. I just thought it was such a clever title. Oh, I also got, oh my god, you have to see this. My girlfriend just bought me. I used to not really eat hot dogs because I was like a child athlete, and that gave me like unhealthy eating habits. I've since like ditched the unhealthy eating habits and love things in moderation, but I love hot dogs now. Look what we found at Target. Look how his little legs, wait, my favorite part is that his little stubby legs, like, how do I describe this? They pop off the ledge of whatever he's sitting on. I think he's perfect. Here, he can join us. I just can't have my dog get near him because he'll absolutely tear this guy up. But Raw Dog by Jamie Loftus, she takes a long distance hot dog tour, I guess, across America. But whilst she does that, she tells you about the meatpacking industry, the crazy bonkers stuff that happened during the pandemic with regards to the meatpacking industry and how insufferable billionaires and industrial companies are and how unjust things were, while also like giving you rankings of hot dogs across the world or across the country, kind of explaining like how she feels. And I just thought it was such a fun, really interesting book. And then on top of that, the cover is fantastic. This isn't even like a special edition. This is just how the book comes. Like, I was floored. Map of all the hot dogs that she saw. What an experience. This book took me like 2 months to read. I read it like at the end of the night, and I'm being so serious when I say like I haven't slept as well since finishing this book because I can't find a good book to like get me settled for the night on my Kindle. I wish I was kidding you. No book has done the same thing. Like, I haven't felt so calm. Maybe I need to pick up a nonfiction, actually. The way that I'm talking, I think I need to find a really interesting nonfiction to pick back up. I feel like I learned a lot, and I'm so glad that I read this. And this also inspired me, one, to read more nonfiction, but also just like to pick books up on a whim. I feel like I don't really do that. Even when I'm at a bookstore and I'm browsing, if I see a book that like piques my interest, I'll go on Goodreads and see if it has a high rating. Why do I do that? Why don't I just pick up books for the enjoyment of it, like I did this one? If you do check this out, please let me know what you thought. I genuinely enjoyed this so much. Okay, we're down to my last two, which I don't know, I can't choose. These 15 are all my favorite, but these two, I feel like I read them in the latter half of the year, and I feel like I think about them an unhealthy amount. Run with the Wind by Shion Mura is just a spectacular Japanese fiction. It is based off the real life Hikone Ikiden, which is a Japanese tradition, which is gonna happen soon actually if I think about it, because they're like, I think there's 20 college teams that run it, and it's like 2 days over the new year, January 1st and 2nd, I think, and they run like an absurd amount. It's so beautiful. It is so beautiful. There's an anime was based off of this novel. Changed my life, changed how I see the world. One of my favorite pieces of fiction to ever exist. And then the translation came out, also changed my life in a different way. But even if you don't like running or exercise, if you like the concept of friendship and what it means to try and fit in somewhere, this is so much to say about platonic love and your own journey of chasing your dreams and being honest with yourself and pushing yourself to your own set limits. I cannot say more good things about this story as a whole. Read the book, watch the anime, watch the Hakone Ikiden when it comes out. I actually don't know if I can stream it, but that would be really fun. And then I also have a list of 2024 releases that I read in 2023, but before I get to that, I'll just finish off with my last book that I want to talk about, Blue Sisters by Coco Malors. Easily, like, I know that I said that I can't rank these, but this would fall in my top 3, like, no matter what. I can't say what the other two are, but I just know this is up there. I found this on Pango, signed for like 15 buckaroonies, which is crazy to me. Also, I have a Pango code now, THU5, to get $5 off your first order if you've never used Pango Books, where you could like buy used books. I'm addicted to that website. It's concerning. I haven't been enamored with a set of characters since I read The Secret History by Donna Tartt in 2021. These characters live inside my heart all the time, and I'm so surprised that I feel like that, because I kind of went into this with no expectations. I don't have a sister, I have an older brother, so I didn't really think I would feel so emotionally attached to them, but every single sister is so distinct and beautiful in their own way. And the story was done so well and so naturally. There's so much about grief and love. And again, like life after loss. I feel like books with that theme kind of, you know, bring people together in very complicated ways, because obviously we're all like very connected to grief in a certain way from personal experience, but this just hit home so much harder than I was expecting. The writing is done so beautifully and I fell in love with every single character. This is the perfect book about family. I'll say it. I love the character dynamics. It was messy, it was complicated. None of these sisters are perfect, and I loved every single one despite their flaws because of their flaws. I've heard a lot of good things about Blue Sisters this year. It is so well deserved. I think about this book so often. I'm totally gonna reread it, and I think this might go into like all-time favorites, which is crazy. But I love this book and I hope that you pick it up, you give it a chance. And again, Kate Griffiths, she did the audiobook. Kate Griffiths actually changed my life this year. She is a fantastic audiobook narrator. I love my reading experience. I love this book. Oh my god. To talk about, because I got like some early copies of books in 2023 for this year that I kind of wanted to highlight at the end of the year in case you haven't gotten to them yet. But my only 2 rereads of the year: Happy Place by Emily Henry, one of my all-time favorite books, literally of all time. I feel like I'm gonna do a reread of it every year. And then I just purchased the Illumicrate special edition, the signed one with the sprayed edges. And yeah, hold on, let's take a second. I almost dropped this very precious book into my cup of coffee. I think I would have burst out crying. Probably one of my favorite pickups in terms of like obtaining a book this year. I love Happy Place so much. I also reread 4 Weekends at a Funeral. I got the signed copy because I visited my family in Minnesota/Wisconsin. Went to Mall of America, had this bad boy. There were only like 2 or 3, got the best one. She like DM'd me on Instagram after I posted on my story and she was like, oh my god, like if you're at the Mall of America, I just signed those last week. So it's like, that's so cool. I love Ellie Palmer. I love her writing. I feel like I haven't shut up about this book since I read it literally last December. It came out on August 8th, 6th of this year, and it still lands in my like top 2024 releases. It will probably be one of my favorite books, all-time favorite books. I reread it on audiobook and it was just a dang good time. I love how much heart is in this book. This checks off all the boxes for me in terms of what I want in a contemporary romance. The male main character, the 90s rom-com vibes. Couldn't have asked for more. So those are the 2 that I reread. And then books that I read last year that came out this year that I feel like I want to just highlight in case you want more on your TBR. Never Been Better by Leanne Toshiko Simpson was phenomenal. I still think about this book even though I read it over a year ago. It has so much important mental health representation and it is done in such a way that is fun and light. I think everyone and their aunt and their uncle and their mom should read it. I have such a soft spot for this book. Like I genuinely still randomly out of the blue think about this. Say You'll Be Mine by Naina Kumar. So much heart, so much culture in this contemporary romance. Naina Kumar is also coming out with Flirting with Disaster, I think in January of 2025. So excited. I started it, but I haven't finished it yet. Really enjoying her writing. And then I found this copy for $2. These are books that I still think about. Cinema Love by Jiaming Tang, a book that I think about once a day. The Gay Men in China and the Women Who Marry Them. I didn't even need to read the tagline. The lyrical writing, the character development, the story that these 6 characters go through, it is so special and so, oh my god. One of the most 5-star books that's ever 5-starred. Please go read it. And then last but certainly not least, I think a book that a lot of people have heard about is The Wedding People. I read this early and absolutely adored it. I think it is so quirky. And again, mental health representation that does it in a way that's like pretty light. I mean, it is heavy, obviously. I think mental health is super important to be talked about. And I think this won some kind of Goodreads award, right? So I feel like the people know what they're talking about. This one was really good. I think I'm going to do some type of like reading journal walkthrough if that's of interest to anyone. I did it on my iPad, but I feel like I accomplished a lot of my goals in a really good way. A lot of my reading goals and like life goals. I had a growing 2024. It was filled with lots of love and light and laughter and happiness and sadness and hardships, and I learned a lot, and I hope you learned a lot in 2024 as well. I hope you laughed a lot and loved a lot, and I'm wishing both of us a very successful, happy, healthy 2025. I'm excited to continue making content. I genuinely really miss talking to the camera. I can't even explain to you how difficult these last couple of months have been, but I made it. I did it. We did it. We're here. Happy 2024. Please let me know your favorites of the year. So excited to see your comments and so excited to walk into 2025 with you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your year, and I will talk to you next year. Bye.